Hello, everyone, and welcome to Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans. I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, Tanya Hart, a powerhouse in the beauty industry and the visionary behind a multi-million-dollar salon and spa brand. Tanya's journey is nothing short of inspiring. Her teenage years were marked with intense struggles, bullying, substance abuse, and even dropping out of high school. But instead of letting those challenges define her, she used them to fuel a leadership style rooted in inclusivity, empathy, and resilience. Today, Tanya is a trailblazer, known for her commitment to creating opportunities for all, making her brand a beacon of diversity and empowerment. In this episode, we will dive into how her personal experiences shaped her approach to leadership, how she learned to lead from the heart, stay open-minded, and ensure that everyone feels like they belong. Tanya's story is a testament to the idea that no one has to fit the mold to be successful. Life throws challenges our way, but as she often reminds her own children, staying adaptable, open-minded, and determined can turn struggles into stepping stones. Get ready for a conversation filled with wisdom, real-life lessons, and the power of embracing who you are. Let's get started. You're listening to today's leaders, from teens to titans. Hi, I'm Lorraine Connell, a teen leadership coach. I transitioned from teaching chemistry to coaching teens in leadership, helping them realize they can do hard things. We've often believed that leadership is an innate trait, but it's actually a skill that you build and improve. On this show, you'll meet today's leaders who share their teenage experiences, revealing how they developed confidence, direction, and the tools to become the leaders they are now. You'll discover how you or the teens in your life have the potential to become confident leaders, even if it doesn't seem possible. I'm so excited to welcome you to the podcast today.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. You already have me crying, so that's wonderful.
Yes. So as you are embracing this emotion, I would love for you to go back to Tanya as an adolescent, young teen who is immersed in these struggles and sort of share how you got to the place that you are today.
Yeah. Without unpacking too much, I had a really hard time at home growing up, and I had a really hard time at school. I was often a pretty girl who didn't know that I was pretty. I was smart and I wasn't challenged. So I faced a lot of social constructs like not fitting in. And it just led me to a life of substance abuse, drugs, drinking. I got kicked out of my house. I often ran away. And I moved out of my house at a really young age, and things shifted for me a little bit. I knew that I had to take accountability for some of the ways that I had gotten myself to where I was, and also forced me to really jump into life with both feet. I ended up dropping out of high school, and there was nobody there to take care of me, so I knew that I had to take care of myself. So there was a lot of self-reflection at a really young age, and then learning over time that I was only going to get as far as I would allow myself to be through grit, determination, self-awareness, and holding myself accountable for a lot of things.
Yeah, tell us how you use that as a stepping stone to where you are today.
Yeah, so I took a lot of jobs early. I learned a lot about responsibility. I moved up through a lot of ladders at a young age. I started in retail. I got into management at 18 years old. I started to move around the country in different leadership positions. And I came home from California because I had moved all over the country. And when I moved home from California, I got a job at a salon, which was always something that I wanted to do. But my family had a very low perception, or how would you say it? They just thought that I was too smart to become a hairstylist, right? Which you hear that a lot in my industry, which is unfortunate. And I ended up getting a job when I got home as a salon manager. About 6 months into the management, I found out that you could apprentice in the state of New Hampshire to get your license. So this was in 2004. So I somehow convinced one of my stylists to become my instructor. And my only requirement of her was to sign off on my hours and my quizzes. But I was going to teach myself everything that I needed to know about being a hairdresser. So I learned a lot through making mistakes, like mistakes with color formulations, mistakes with haircuts, watching my staff around me make mistakes and knowing that wasn't what I wanted to do. And then I ended up having a baby in 2008 after I got my license. And once I hired and trained somebody to take the position in management so I could step back and take care of my child, I was let go. I was let go from this company with a 6-month-old baby at home. And I sat at home for like about a month and I was like, okay, this is not going to work for me. Do I want to keep pursuing the beauty industry? What can I do? I started shopping at thrift stores. I created an online vintage clothing business as a way to supplement my income. And then I eventually got back into hair. I worked at a few different salons. And over time, I realized that a lot of them were really poorly led. In 2013, I had brunch with a couple of girlfriends, feeling like I was at the end of my career as a hairstylist. I was broke. I was tired. I was in a marriage that wasn't working out and kind of pondered what my next stage of life was going to be. And I was going to leave hair and get into sales. My girlfriends convinced me that I would be an amazing salon owner because of my approach to people, what I wanted, my vision, my grit and determination. And I thought about it and I was talking to a client about it and she was like, well, who's going to do my hair if you leave? Right? And offered to give me a loan. And I was like, man, if she believes in me that much and my friends believe in me that much, maybe I have to believe in me and take that leap of faith. So my husband was not on board and I did it anyways. I made a proposal for my client. I sat down with her. In the grand scheme of opening a salon, it's actually really silly. She gave me a loan for $7,500. And I was like, okay, if you give me 5,000, I'll do this for you. If you give me 7,500, I'll do this. If you give me 10, I'll do this. So we agreed on 7,500. $7,500 covers like 1 month's rent and security deposit back in 2014 when I finally opened the salon. And it was incredible because I just was like, how can I make this happen? People believe in me. I know that I can do this. Like, I have worked in so many places. Nothing is clicking. It doesn't seem right, but this industry has so much to offer. So I went on Craigslist. I found sinks, I found stations, I found chairs, and I just made it work. So we opened our doors in June of 2014. By September, I had added 2 more chairs. So originally the salon was 850 square feet and 4 chairs. Today it is 28 chairs, 4,000 square feet. On top of that, I own a second business. It's a 3,000 square foot spa brand. I'm launching a hair care line this year. I mentor other beauty professionals and sometimes small business owners. And it's pretty incredible how I got here. And I really pride myself on the opportunity that I'm able to give other people because of all of the opportunities that people gave me over the years. It feels like I have to give back.
I love this story. I mean, this is why I wanted you to come on this podcast and share this story. And you're honest in terms of like when I talk to you, is that it worked out really well for you. It doesn't always work out for everybody. So I want to ask you a question about when you dropped out of high school and you said there was nobody to support or care for you. And I think oftentimes in society, when we see somebody making the quote unquote choice to drop out, we assign blame to the person who is dropping out, right? You couldn't make it in this environment. So you are the mistake. You have created this in your own path. So can you talk a little bit about the feelings that you experienced when you, I don't know if you would call it a choice or if you would define it as a choice about dropping out of high school?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll tell you, at the time I was in and out of my parents' house. It was like a final determination that I could not live there anymore. We were not getting along. So I moved in with my aunt. I did about 6 months to a year at another high school. And in the beginning, I got pulled aside by a teacher and she was like, You again, I'm crying. I like haven't talked about this in so long.
Yeah.
She pulled me aside and she's like, I can already tell that you're so smart. You are like acing all of this material. You need to stop hanging around with these people. And she became kind of like a beacon of light for me because it felt like that was the first adult in my life that really gave me a chance and an opportunity. Oh my God, Lorraine, this is crazy. I did not expect this.
Well, I think these are raw memories. And I was talking to somebody earlier today. Like, it's easier to suppress some of these experiences than to expose them and see them for now what they are.
Being a teenager is hard. And I want you guys to know it is hard if teenagers are going to be listening to us. It's not easy. Those can be some of the worst years of your life. So I have this teacher who really believed in me. I ended up leaving that school, trying to live at my parents' house again. It didn't work out. That teacher actually offered to pay tuition for me to continue going to that high school that I was doing really well at. And my parents would not help me commute there. So I was faced with the decision of going back to my old high school where I was constantly bullied, fighting, getting in trouble at school. I mean, I was constantly getting suspended because I didn't know what to do. I was lost. And when you're in a situation where you're being bullied, I don't know the best way to manage it, but it didn't seem like I was getting the help, right? So I was pushing back and I was doing everything that I could to advocate for myself. So I made the decision to drop out of high school. And I had always worked since I was 13 years old. And it felt like the right choice for me. And I knew that I would give myself the opportunity to go back to school. Like I would get myself my GED. Like there was no way I was not going to allow myself the opportunity to better myself because of my circumstances. So I, dropped out at 17. At 19 years old, when I started to really think about what my future looked like, I was then in a relationship with somebody who was very toxic. And I was like, I can't live on my own. Like, how am I going to get ahead? And so I went and got my GED and felt like it wasn't enough to really feel like I was getting into like this big career, but it was something that gave me like the confidence and validation that I really needed at the time. Like I was smart enough, like I was worthy. Look what I did for myself.
Yeah, it is so interesting to hear you shed that light on the experience that led you to the decision that I don't think came very lightly for you. There were no other options, it seems. And when we look down as society on people who don't finish high school or didn't have the space in order to complete that journey, it's such a burden to carry on that individual. And so you have to like validate to others that it wasn't because you weren't smart enough. And nobody asked that other question of, well, what was it that made it impossible for you to be in that space? And to hear you share that bullying was such a powerful influence over your ability to be.
How can you truly be 100% if that chaos is constantly happening? You're not in a safe place. You're not in a secure place. It was hard. And I feel like it happens a lot.
It does happen a lot. And like you said, what is the best way to combat or deal with bullying? As adults in kids' life, I don't think we have the answer for that, but we can sure tell you what to do. But I think, again, a lot of the stories and a lot of the themes keep coming back to when are we going to ask the kid who's being impacted? When are we going to ask them what they need? Because you said, I didn't have the support that I needed. And like part of the problem is as adults, we don't know what to give. We don't know how to handle bullying ourselves.
Yeah, it's true. I would not know what to do if my kid came home and said that he was being bullied. But it's almost happened before, like online games and stuff. And I'm just like, the best thing you could do is ignore them or be happy because a bully doesn't want to see you happy or try to be confident, right? But if you're constantly being bullied and have this self-worth like image in your head that you're not worthy because this is happening, it's hard to combat that, especially at a very young age.
Right. And like you said, teenage years are really hard and you don't have any experience to rely on. And we have adults telling you it'll get better and just get through it. And you're like, but I'm in it right now. And I think The other piece that I want to acknowledge is that you were pretty, but you didn't know you were pretty. And so often we think that others have it easier than us because of some attribute or some skill that they have. And in reality, we're all struggling in different ways and probably equally in different spaces.
Right. Because even the prettiest girl in the room who knows she's pretty, she also gets hated on. It's one of my favorite quotes and something that I share with my team often is comparison is the thief of joy. It's a good one, especially when you sit with it and you think about it and think about how frequently you compare yourself to others or right, especially
Yeah.
with the presence of social media in our lives. It's easy to do that. And I think it really is like comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah. And reflecting on where you are and who you are today is that you are a lifelong learner. You're a seeker of knowledge. You're a seeker of gaining knowledge to share it with others. And so the stigma along the lines of not completing high school the traditional way can really impact where you went and what you chose to do. And so I think it's really awesome. I think part of your success, and we talked about in your introduction, is that you're leading from the heart and from a place of knowing. And the people who come to you can see themselves in you. And that gives them the opportunity to step into things that more likely they wouldn't have done without you in their lives.
Yeah. It's definitely something where it's not just about business and numbers and stuff like that. It's I know that if I can help them with some of their personal struggles without overextending myself, then I know that they're just going to flourish in so many other areas.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's like you've created a culture that is a community of belonging in a place where it's often a cutthroat kind of situation, right? I think of salons and how everybody has their own chair in a
So,
space, right? So there's competition. And so, how do you create this space where everybody can belong?
well, I think it's important that you talk about how we always work as a team. There is no competition here. Like, again, comparison is the thief of joy. I teach a class on the four agreements, which I think is really impactful. And when we have our reviews and we have conversations, say they had a horrible client, right? Somebody that made them feel really bad, or they have
Yeah.
something going on at home, or they think that there's an issue with another coworker, we're able to kind of go back to some of those practices of that thought process, but we often call ourselves the island of misfit toys because I feel like the misfit stylist, because we embrace our faults, we embrace our imperfections. And I think that's what makes our team really beautiful instead of feeling like they have to be this thing, like the stigma of the hairstylist. It's the big, long, crazy hair and totally done up all the time and snapping gum and XYZ and living this wild lifestyle. And I think that's what makes us really beautiful and our culture really work.
I love that. Can you talk a little bit about the four agreements? Where did that come into your journey? And because I've also now had the experience of understanding that and the power behind it and knowing where it came into your journey and how you use it today is really fascinating.
Yeah. So when I opened the salon about a year and a half, 2 years in, my marriage had ended. And I was also working on some like personal struggles at work where I wasn't getting along with one of the other stylists that worked for me. And I was talking about it in therapy one day, which I think therapy is really useful if you can get into it. And my therapist was like, "Have you ever read the Four Agreements?" And I was like, "No, what is it?" So the Four Agreements is a really small book. It's like, what, 100 and something pages, really easy read. You can read it in a couple of hours, but it kind of teaches you that your belief system is something that's passed down to you from your parents, other people in your life, influences. And if you can kind of get away from that way of thinking, then these four agreements will help shift your perception and you can live a much like happier life. So the first agreement is be impeccable with your word. So what does that mean? It means no gossiping, never speaking badly about yourself, learning to say no, learning to say yes, like being really impactful and intentional with the words that you're using. The second one is don't take things personally. And I know that this is a big one. So when I teach this class, it's kind of like an intro class for my team members. When I teach this class, I'm like, how many of you guys take things personally? Everybody raises their hand. And you don't know what that person at the gas station that flipped you off, what their morning was like. You don't know, somebody comes into work or school and they're feeling a certain way and you think that they're mad at you. Everybody is living their own reality. So you have to really learn not to take things personally and maybe find a little like compassion, empathy, and be like, that person probably had a bad day. What can I do to help them? Or, hey, can I check in with them or whatever? The third one is don't make assumptions, which I feel like 2 and 3 kind of go hand in hand. I feel like we're always making assumptions about people and things. We just talked about that with the comparison, right? It's you assume that because somebody is driving a BMW or Mercedes that they're wealthy. That's not the case a lot of the times, right? You assume that because somebody is really pretty or that they excel at sports, that they have it all together, that their life is this like wonderful, beautiful thing, that they have a good family that they're close to. And that's just not reality, right? And number 4 is always do your best. And this is something that I try to reiterate a lot with the team because you're a human being and you have good days and you have bad days. My expectation is not that people are going to be 100% all the time. If your best was getting out of bed today, making coffee and going to the bathroom and then crawling back into bed all day, good. That's all you had in the tank for that day. And that's beautiful, right? Like you have to know when to step back. And if you're always trying to do your best, then I think that there's a lot of acceptance. And I try to tell my team members too, like, I'm not a robot. Like, I know everybody thinks I'm a superhuman and all this crazy stuff, but I have a lot going on too. And so please just don't put me on this pedestal. Don't expect me to be the person that's always doing everything. I'm going to do my best. You're going to do your best. And I will never fault you if you make a mistake. What can we learn from that? So if you can think about those 4 agreements in almost every scenario like in your life, then I think it really does change the perception and it helps you grow and succeed in ways that I don't even think you could put a cap on the ways that it impacts your life with that way of thinking.
Right. And I also feel as those 4 agreements almost release you from that space in which you can't move forward, right? The packing that comes on top of me with those 4 agreements, it allows me the space to find out who I am, what I want. It comes back to why I really want to work with teens before they get to 16, because at 16, the input of information becomes exponential. I think there's all of this input coming in as we're growing up, but at 16, the input now is coming from so many different places that if I haven't built the confidence in understanding that my voice is the number one voice I need to listen to, then we miss that opportunity to develop it. And so it's not until I'm 45, 50, and beyond that I realize I don't even listen to myself. I don't listen to my own ideas, my own voice. And it's because I never built that muscle. I never built the skill as a young person.
Right. And I think that there's so much social pressure when you're a kid because you're in school. You have all these factors. You want to fit in with everybody. And you don't realize that, like, just by being yourself and standing out, that I don't know, there's something really like beautiful and powerful about that. And I've succeeded in a lot of ways. And I've always been, I guess, very intensely like self-reflective. And I've been able to overcome a lot of my complications in my life and whatever. But I really, truly don't feel like I was ever really confident in who I was until I was out of my marriage and I was actually in the salon and realizing how much of an impact I had on others. And by putting myself out there in transparency all the time and helping people create opportunities for themselves, it was like, aha, I had all these like aha moments. And I was talking to some friends about this and they were like, well, I always felt like you were like that. And I'm like, well, glad because I didn't see that about myself. Right. So, yes, if you can learn a skill set when you're younger and try to maintain that mindset will help propel you to beyond belief what you could do with your life.
Right, right. The limitations are gone, right? And so we put our own limitations on ourselves because we haven't developed the ability to listen to what we want, to listen to what we think is important. And I think it resonates so strongly with me that you were years into owning your own salon, managing people that you were like, hey, maybe I'm the reason that this is happening. Maybe I'm the leader that is making all of this a reality. Before that, and same with me, I'm in this place, oh, this has just happened to me and I'm just lucky. But no, it's the choices we've made, it's the things we've done that have gotten us to this point. It's time for us to start saying, yes, this is me.
Imposter syndrome is a real thing. Yeah, especially when you don't have the confidence. It's like it can be debilitating.
Yeah. And that comparison skill, that muscle of comparison is so strong. We're building it up and up in all of the things that we do, especially as we come into middle school and then in high school. And the opposite muscle of confidence is never getting worked. It's like getting weaker and weaker through the comparisons that we do for ourselves.
So, something that's really surprising that people every time I tell them this is I don't follow other salons. I don't follow what other stylists are doing. If I was constantly allowing myself to look at other people, I think that comparison would really come through and I wouldn't be able to focus on myself and focus on my business and what can I do today to be better. If I'm constantly looking through the lens of, oh, well, that person looks successful. Oh, they're doing great. I think that even if you are a confident person, a powerful person, especially with social media, if you're looking at what other teenagers do and you look at what other people in your industry do, I think it really you're like, well, I'm not doing that. Am I doing something wrong? Or like, I don't fit in like that, or that fashion's not for me. Am I an outcast? Instead of embracing how different and beautiful and authentic you are.
Right. And it's the differences in ourselves that make us strong. It's the differences when you bring people together who are all different. That's how you solve problems. But if you bring and you try and be like somebody else, you're going to do the same things wrong that they're doing. And you're never going to learn from the experience of learning from somebody else.
Yeah. When I coach a lot of other salon owners, that's the thing. They'll open a salon and they'll want to do something different and they'll want to be successful. But what they do is they mirror old systems that are broken because we're just in this pod of, well, it's all the same thinking. When you get other viewpoints and you get different people in there, the critical thinking just explodes. Yeah.
Yeah. And that actually comes back to your story of when you opened your salon, you had experienced a lot of other systems that you knew didn't work. And so when you created your current salon, you decided that I'm not going to do it that way. Right.
Yeah, something's broken. It needs to be different. I don't have the answers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try this and I'm going to see if it works. And if it doesn't work, okay, I learned something. How can I make it work? Or what were the things that we needed to work on in order for that to be successful? You know, instead of, again, like mirroring systems that didn't work, leadership that didn't work, pricing that didn't work, just anything.
Do
Yeah.
you have a method or a system in how you analyze whether things that you're trying that are new and different work?
Well, I think that there's a lot of benchmarks that you can think about. Obviously, you could look at the numbers, but for me, it's sometimes like an overall feeling. Like when we got back from COVID, we switched to like an all-inclusive pricing model where it was hourly, genderless haircuts, everything's based on time, and other salons weren't doing that. And for clients, that felt good. So knowing that clients felt good about it, we made something like more transparent. It was easier for the whole team. You know, instead of being like, oh, well, is it a foil or is it a balayage? And there's a price difference between the two. It's like, well, how long did it take you to do that? And that just made the most sense. I think sometimes you know something's not working within the first 3 weeks because it takes about 21 days, right, to form a new habit. There's the growth period that's really painful. So anybody going through growth, learning something new, you have to give yourself at least 3 weeks of doing it before it becomes like comfortable, right? You see that little chart that's like you learn something new and it's like, ooh, and then it goes, ooh, right? So I think it's just the feeling that you get. And sometimes it's backed by data, you know.
And who's on your decision-making team? Who have you brought in to support you so that you're not the only one making those decisions?
I tell my team all the time, again, going back to I don't have all the answers. If they have a recommendation, if they feel like something else could work, I'll sit with it and I'll be like, you know what, let's try it because I don't know. It's open to anybody to kind of help make decisions. Sometimes I'll say, hey, let's try this promotion. What do you guys think about it? We have a kickoff meeting at the beginning of every year. And I'm like, hey, what worked for us last year? What didn't work for us? Is there anything you guys want to do this year? And then I do all of my annual one-on-ones and kind of ask the same questions. It's like, well, what do you want to work on? How can I help you? And I think collectively, it's decision making, right? At the end of the day, I am the sole yes or no, but I'm
Right.
very open to like feedback of how we can do things better.
Sounds like a really great place to work, Tanya.
People like it here, you know?
You?
Yeah, they do.
Do you want to sort of highlight the also misconception of hairstylists and your parents or your family sort of dismissing the fact that you were too smart to be a hairstylist?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in the 80s, and I think that hairdressing, what did they call them? Hairdressers? Is that what it was? And you see in all movies, actually, you just see the hairstylist is this like gossipy girl. She's got her body really revealing outfit. She's snapping gum. She's in the salon. Everybody's, oh, like ditzy, right? And my mom was a hairstylist. My aunt was a hairstylist. And I felt like for my mom, she felt like she didn't have any other skills because she didn't do very well in school.
Mm.
She was a young mother. She had me at 18 years old. So she felt like that was her only option. And she didn't do it for a long time. It was not something that ever took off for her. Flash forward to what I'm doing today is when I started to get into my career, realizing that there was a lot of potential. I always say that you have the license to print money in this industry. There's no cap on the amount of money that you can make. There's a lot of different ways that you can succeed and get there. And my team, starting out as a level one stylist, they're making about $45,000 a year. I have somebody who's making $100,000 a year. So it's really just in such a short amount of time, 4 years, 5 years. I had a one-on-one today with a 26-year-old girl on my team. She did about 45,000 last year. She's probably going to hit over 50 this year. She's 26 years old. She has an IRA that I've helped convince her to put money away. I match it. And I'm like, open a high yield savings account and having all these other like streams of revenue. By the time that they're my age, they're going to be making $200,000 a year. And then they're also going to have these like really beautiful investments that are doing things for them. And nobody teaches you that in this industry. And it's like you said, there's a lot of salons that have what we call booth renters or like suite owners, and they just rent a chair. And I think that the culture is different. I don't want to talk badly of it because
No.
everybody has a place where they fit in, but there is something to be said about how things are different between that kind of environment and like the environment that I've created here. So
Right. I mean, it's the simple word of team, right? You're all in this together. There's an abundance. The growth can be boundless when you work together to develop what you make.
yeah, and it's interesting. So we have a lot of clients that come to us and they won't just stick with one stylist. They'll see whoever because they know that we work together. Their formulas are in the computer. We're not, catty and we don't compete with each other. We work together as a team. And sometimes when we get a first-time client in and they don't hit it off necessarily with that stylist right away, and I'm like, "Oh, why don't you go see so and so or why don't you see one of the other stylists?" And they're like, "Oh, well, I don't want to offend the first stylist I saw." And I'm like, "You're not going to. We work together as a team here, and it's really not a big deal." And they're like, "Okay." And then everybody's happy. Yeah.
It's great. So now that you have shared your journey and you've been able to live that life and can reflect back, what advice would you give to the teens of today and the teen that you were as an individual?
I think one of the biggest things is, again, comparison is the thief of joy. If you can learn not to compare yourself to others, I think that will help propel you much further. And just knowing that any struggle you have in life, it's just temporary. And if you can be self-reflective, self-aware, hold yourself accountable, you have limitless opportunities in your life with those skills.
Great advice. I love it. So where do people find you? What if I know you're based in New Hampshire, but it sounds like the work that you can provide, the mentorship, is not geographically based?
No. So if you want to get in touch with me about mentorship, any inspiration, anything like that, probably LinkedIn is the best. If you're looking for a more casual approach to connecting with me, Instagram is really fun. I post a lot of pictures of my dogs on there, or even Facebook.
Well, thank you so much. And you are based in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and it's a
Salon. Yep.
salon. Awesome. So thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for your insight and your willingness to share your experience.
Well, thank you for having me. And I want you to know that the work you're doing is very important.
Thank you. Are you ready to help the young people in your life unlock their inner strength and step confidently into leadership? The new workbook from Peers Not Fears, Your Voice Matters, Uncovering Your Unique Leadership. It's designed to help teens see the leader in themselves, step by step. It's not just a workbook. It's the first step towards a ripple effect that could change lives. Let's turn today's teens into tomorrow's titans. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other parents who might benefit from this conversation. Together, we can support our teens in building healthy, positive relationships and become leaders of tomorrow. Until next time, I'm Lorraine Connell, and this is Leaders of Today, Teens to Titans.